Determining just how well your child will read starts way before they ever step foot in a classroom. Here to explain is Ruth Rumack, an academic support specialist with 20 years of experience under her belt. Good morning to you, Ruth. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
You know, this is such an appropriate conversation in my household, at least. I have a 4.5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. What age should kids start to read?
That is a very good question. I mean, in our practice at Ruth Rumack's Learning Space, we've seen students as young as 2.5 learn to read. And then we also work with students who are 8, 9, and 10 who still haven't consolidated those skills. I think for the curriculum, the Canadian curriculum, we're expecting that students are going to learn to read by the end of grade 1. So that's what we're looking at. That 5, 6-year-old range is sort of what we as Canadians look at as an absolute time.
Okay, so what are the certain skills that we could start helping our children with?
Well, it's really interesting because reading is not just learning the alphabet. It's not memorizing your ABCs. It's really a whole set of skills that occur beforehand, really at early stages, maybe 2, 3 years old, where it's phonological awareness. It's the ability to manipulate and recognize sounds within words. So that includes things like rhyming, blending, squeezing words together, segmenting, pulling them apart, being able to manipulate the sounds in words. And the more you play with language, the stronger your reading skills will be in the future.
So for an example, sort of a practical example in your home with your kids, you're not talking about putting things down on paper necessarily. You're talking about the verbal conversations you have with your children, pointing things out, that type of thing? It's
a very auditory skill. So these pre-reading skills are things like noticing that 2 words rhyme. You can be reading a Dr. Seuss book and hear the cat in the hat. Oh my goodness, listen to that, cat, hat. They both have the same ending. Or maybe noticing that 2 words start the same way, alliteration. Well, my name is Ruth, and I might say ravishing Ruth. Can you hear that those 2 sounds start the same way, those 2 words begin in the same way? So it's really getting your child attuned to those sounds and being able to manipulate them and having fun.
And you talk about it's not just about memorizing. No. And it's tough to, for some kids, that's the route they go, and they think that they're comprehending that way. But how do you tell if your child is really comprehending and really grasping the language that they're learning versus just memorizing?
Well, once you get to the print stage where you're actually making that sound symbol correspondence, so you know all the letters, you know the sounds that they make, and you're able to blend them together. What we want to look at is if we switch the letters out, if we change the middle sound, the middle vowel sound, we start with cup, and then we change it to cap. Can the child notice that that middle sound changes and that they are now reading a new word? So it's about playing with the language, and I like to use nonsense words. So if you make up words with consonant, vowel, consonant, and you switch them around, if they can be flexible in that way and they can move, roll with the punches, then we know that they have a good understanding.
And I want to ask you about, what if your children or your child is already in school? And you can recognize in your child that they are having some struggles. What is your best advice for parents?
I think it's really important to get some intervention as quickly as possible. At Ruth Rumack's Learning Space, we really look at the student where they are at that moment, and we try and give them the skills and the curriculum that they need in order to move forward. If a child is not reading by the end of grade 1, from my personal experience and opinion, I think you need to take some action at that point.
What does that mean? Like ask for, tutors, that type of thing?
Well, you might want to get outside help. You might also want to go to the classroom teacher and say, I'm noticing that my child is not meeting these milestones, or it's really a struggle, or there are a lot of tears when it comes time to reading, and ask the school what they can do. And then often you have to go outside of the school and find some support for your individual child's needs.
Do you believe that, starting them early like this, they'll have a love of learning and love of reading, I should say, for life?
Absolutely. I mean, it's my mission in life to promote phonological awareness skills. So we have a whole series of books, The Alphamania Adventures, that does just that. And the thing about it is that it's about fun, and you have to make it enjoyable, because there are kids who really don't find it enjoyable at first. But if you can bring an element of excitement, an element of game, an element of activity, then it's something that a child will really be empowered to do.
Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment, because I know one woman in particular who said, she did all of these steps. She read to her child. She had him read, surrounded by books, the whole thing, went through the whole process. This child just did not want to read, doesn't like reading. Yeah. So are you born a reader? Or do you learn to be a reader?
I think you have to find the thing that really catches your interest. Sometimes we work with students who really don't enjoy the narrative. They don't enjoy the story. They don't get into the characters. But they really love information. So a book of Guinness World Records or an informational passage is something that really hooks them because it's something they're interested in. I was just talking with a student who's in grade 4 who really loves viruses and bacteria.
Really?
And yep, really loves it. And so,
something for everybody, right?
Exactly. So, not a novel, but certainly something that piqued his interest.
Yeah, so maybe to try to find the what's
thing.
interesting.
And there's reading and words all around us. Reading a recipe, for example, or comics, or I would say even creating a treasure hunt where your child goes around the house finding different items. But it's a list of words, and they're practicing those skills even though they're not reading a full book.
And also the importance of parent participation, those around the children, right?
So important.
Getting involved. Ruth, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it.